looking for a distraction from the fact that our president is currently disappearing legal residents to foreign countries and senators have to go and rescue them? Neat, I can help you. Welcome to States Against Humanity, the March Madness / April tournament where we, a group of strangers on the internet, come together to trauma bond and distract ourselves from the dark, dark times by choosing the worst state for humanity. We are in round 2 currently, and we're traveling over to the southern discomfort. We're going to jump up here to look at Florida versus Tennessee in the category of LGBTQ. Also, sorry I'm late. I've been busy with stuff because it keeps happening on this timeline. I know you're probably thinking, Florida has this in the bag. I mean, they created a whole law. It's like, don't say gay. Especially because just last week, we saw that a Brevard teacher is losing their job because they chose to call a student by their preferred pronouns, but they didn't have a permission slip from the parents to do that. Can you imagine showing up with a name like Chrysanthemum on the first day of school and they can't call you Chris because your parents haven't filled out a form that says they can? Oh my God, this state. Melissa Calhoun teaches AP Literature at Satellite High School, and that just means you don't want to mess with her, because I'm going to tell you right now, I taught English literature too, in addition to government and history and stuff. Those teachers in the English department, like, they don't mess around, but especially not the AP Lit teachers. They know the things. You don't want to lose a good AP Lit teacher. So this is wild that the district chose to not renew her contract because she called the student by their preferred name, and the parents hadn't signed off on that. So she violated Florida's law, state statute. Hold on, this is what's called parental authorization for deviation from a student's legal name form. Like, who authored that? Oh my God, straight to jail. Okay, so the actual law was created back in 2023, so before the parameters of this contest, but she is the first teacher to lose their job or not be rehired because of it. Part of that is that teachers cannot teach LGBTQ topics in school curriculum. They cannot give alternative names for students unless the parents have signed a permission slip. But the statute does allow for teachers to talk about LGBTQ concepts, just not teach them in the curriculum. And that is thanks to a lawsuit that was brought by these people. I will put their names up in post. I'm so sorry, I forgot it. Ron DeSantis called it a victory, but they said, no, it's not. Because listen, even though we can't teach it, we can still talk about it. We can still make safe spaces for students. And that is so important. Unfortunately, things aren't getting better because Florida has a new bill that would encourage workplace misgendering. Don't say gay or trans. Like, they have the creativity of a moth. It's called Senate Bill 440. It prohibits public employers from requiring employees to use trans people's personal pronouns. It wouldn't allow people to use the pronouns. It would also remove the non-binary option from job applications and make it illegal for people to learn LGBTQ cultural competence trait. Like, you basically can't even learn to be a decent human to these people. Also on the menu of the terrible news buffet, the appellate court in Florida overrode a lower court who had blocked Florida's gender affirming ban. Yeah. So the appellate court's like, too bad. It's law. Next, we have Florida eliminating the LGBTQ information from their websites for tourism. I didn't like the graphic on the one that I searched up, and this came up next. I like it. Look, inclusion. It's not hard. Also, Florida is well ahead of other states because they'd already been dismantling DEI on college campuses for years before Trump's mandate. On to Tennessee. It's honestly just different flavors of awful here, right? So the Supreme Court is going to hear arguments about a Tennessee law that would ban gender-affirming care for minors. Under the Biden administration, the Justice Department sided with medical science, right, and all of the scientists that know what they're saying and doing, who said that puberty blockers and hormone therapy replacement was necessary. So the Biden administration was like, listen, that is discriminatory against trans people. But then, when this dude got into office, the DOJ withdrew the support from the youth in that case. And now the Supreme Court has had several hearings. Apparently, it seems like the justices might be kind of torn on this issue. We'll know by summer. There's a new anti-trans bathroom bill that's headed to the desk of Tennessee Governor Bill Lee. You need only one guess to determine how he's going to side with that. Now, Tennessee had one of the first and the biggest outward bans on public drag shows in the country. Remember that? Well, there was a lawsuit over this law, this anti-drag show ban, but a federal appeals court dismissed it. The law was signed into effect back in 2023, but the litigation was ongoing. We had hope when we saw that a federal judge rejected the ban and said it was unconstitutional. Like, we had a brief glimmering moment of hope. But after the appellate courts overturned that glimmering hope, the Supreme Court's like, yeah, we're not going to hear this case, which means that they can't overturn it, which means that the ban is going to stay in effect, which, aside from the discrimination alone, is just silly in terms of the economic impacts of this to tourism and just in general. There's also a law that allows government officials to refuse to perform same-sex marriages, which is like, here's permission to discriminate against people. Thanks. What? And while these odious businesses that refuse to cater to same-sex marriages are getting just absolutely dragged through the court of public opinion, they're also not breaking any laws, which boggles the mind. But under Tennessee's Human Rights Act, you cannot discriminate against a person based on age, color, creed, disability, national origin, race, religion, and sex, but not gender identity and not sexual orientation. This is why it was such a big deal when I covered the story in Iowa that they took it out of their civil rights protections for trans people. They removed gender identity as a protected class from their Civil Rights Act. And I was like, y'all, this is bad. This is why. This is why. There were a bunch more stories that I could talk about, but I would be here until August. And we would like to have our next game to play. I don't want to cover this for the rest of my life. So why don't you do me a favor and just pick which state you think was worse for humanity here. I will also put a Google form in the comments in case this poll disappears. Can we try to have this short up by the end of the weekend? I'd like to move on to the final four. Also, because we need to start America's Least Wanted because there's so many people to choose from. Bye.